in the black eternity where time forgets to breathe. There are storms that even gods will not name. The Imperium calls them warp tides, tempests born of madness, memory, and sin. Through them drift the echoes of worlds long dead, and whispers of what should never be. But this time, something else came through. Something alive. Something ancient. Aurelia Prime, a jewel of the segmentum obscurus. Billions lived beneath its smog-choked skies, their faith the only shield against the endless dark. But faith cannot silence the void. And tonight, the void roared back. The Magos believed it a warp anomaly. The Inquisition believed it heresy made manifest. But neither could name what their auspex beheld. A pulse older than the stars themselves. One heartbeat, then another, each louder than the first. From the depths of a world that had never known silence, something stirred. Metal melted, oceans boiled, faith faltered. And then, the planet heard its name for the first time. It was not the voice of a demon, nor the scream of a dying god. It was life itself, awakened and enraged. A god older than the warp. Across the surface, the faithful knelt in terror. They saw the seas part, and in that impossible chasm, a shadow rose. Not even the titans of the Mechanicus could rival its scale. Eyes like twin suns burning through the storm. A creature without origin, yet older than belief itself. On holy terror, they say the Emperor guards mankind. But on Aurelia Prime, the stars themselves bore witness, as something far greater arrived. Not from the warp, not from chaos, but from the lost dreams of an ancient earth. A beast born when man was still dust, and the world still young. It crossed realities not through intent, but consequence. Dragged here by the tides of the immaterium, an echo of another universe's wrath. A storm had found its god. Some said it was the Emperor's punishment. Others called it the end of faith itself. But the truth, as always, was more terrible. For in a universe that worships war, a god of balance has no place. And in the grim darkness of the far future, balance is blasphemy. The first city fell in 12 minutes. The oceans boiled for days, and the screams of 1 billion souls rose into the warp like a prayer no one would answer. Those who survived would speak of the roar that never ended, of the eyes that watched them from beneath the sea, of an ancient god reborn among the stars. And thus began the fall of Aurelia Prime, the day the warp wept, and a monster became a myth. For in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. And sometimes, war comes wearing the face of a god. The Imperium endures not through mercy, but through faith. Faith in the Emperor, faith in order, faith in the lie that humanity still matters among the stars. On Aurelia Prime, that faith had never wavered, until the sea began to burn. The first reports came from the coastal hives. Vox distortion. Seismic readings that mocked logic. Then silence. The kind of silence that no imperial world can afford. By dawn, 12 million were gone, swallowed by the tide. The planetary governor ordered orbital bombardment. It did nothing. The oceans only glowed brighter, as if laughing at the Emperor's wrath. Inquisitor Severin Vale arrived under sanction of the Ordo Xenos. To him, this was no act of nature. Nature had died 10,000 years ago. This was intrusion. Inquisitor Vale's report. We have observed an organism of impossible scale. Its energy signature surpasses plasma yield thresholds. It feeds upon radiation, and perhaps the warp itself. The Mechanicus named it Subject Gamma Null. The Guard called it the Leviathan. But the common folk, they remembered an ancient word from before the Age of Strife. A word whispered in fear by those who once walked blue skies and green earth. Godzilla. They prayed for deliverance. But the Emperor's light does not reach where the oceans burn. And even the most holy fear what they cannot name. The Magi detected a resonance. Not purely atomic, not purely warp-born. The beast existed between realities, feeding on both matter and memory. They sought to understand it, to harness it. In the Imperium, curiosity is the first step toward damnation. To the Mechanicus, the creature was divine technology. To the Ecclesiarchy, it was a false god. To the Inquisition, it was blasphemy with teeth. By the third day, the planet itself seemed to tremble. Astropaths screamed of psychic echoes. Not words, not thoughts, but emotions. Hunger, pain, memory. It was as if the creature was remembering. A home that no longer existed. Faith faltered. Panic spread. And as always, the Inquisition acted. Orders were given for orbital cleansing should the beast approach major hives. But to kill what you do not understand is to invite its wrath. They fired. Lances of holy fire struck the sea. For a moment, the planet held its breath. The strike had found its mark. But victory was an illusion the Imperium had long mastered. Through the mist, the beast still stood. Every creature has its instinct. Every god, its purpose. To Godzilla, humanity was not prey. It was noise. A world screaming too loudly to ignore. Somewhere, deep within that monstrous form, there may have been understanding that this world was not his, that these beings worshipped death and called it faith. But the Imperium does not share understanding. It enforces obedience. The Emperor protects, they cried. And perhaps, for a moment, he did. But protection means nothing against the fury of creation itself. The beast roared, and the heavens split. Lightning bent backward. Vox channels screamed with static. One city turned to glass, another to vapor. When the light faded, silence returned. Not the silence of peace, but of extinction. And in that silence, the Inquisitor whispered the only prayer left to him. Thus did the Imperium learn its first lesson from the King of Monsters. That not all gods demand worship. Some simply remind the universe what power truly means. The Imperium called it a wound upon the world. But wounds heal. This was awakening. Steel walked again. Titans, cathedrals of war, rose from their forges to meet the impossible. Each Titan is a prayer given form. Each step, a sermon to the machine god. And this sermon would be heard by a god of another kind. When monsters dream, worlds burn. And when they wake, the stars themselves take notice. The guard unleashed everything that bore the Aquila. Shells the size of transports, orbital lances that could crack moons, all vanished against that living mountain. One breath, one god, one silence. The Emperor teaches that fear is the mind killer. But on Aurelia, fear was the only truth left alive. And from the warp something watched. Not a demon, not yet, but hunger wearing patience as a mask. The ruinous powers had heard the roar. Faith twists easily when survival fails. The people began to worship the beast that destroyed them. In their despair, chaos found language. He understood then. This creature was no Xenos invasion. It was the warp made flesh of memory. A punishment written in the language of atoms. That roar traveled through the Immaterium itself. Across light years, astropaths screamed its echo. Even demons paused, listening. The warp had touched him. And the King of Monsters answered. No longer bound by nature, no longer of reason. He had become the bridge between creation and chaos. A god rewritten by war. In the chronicles of the Inquisition, it is written, when the sea burned and the sky turned violet, humanity met its reflection. They called it the awakening of the behemoth. And as the beast roared into the storm that birthed him, the warp answered with thunder. For every god demands an adversary, and the ruinous powers had just found theirs.